Now from Atlanta News First Plus, this is Sports Tonight.
Welcome into your Sports Tonight for this Monday edition. I am Bailey Burmaster. Today is all dedicated to the Dawgs after they lost that one in Oxford that not a lot of people are too thrilled about, and rightfully so. They fell in Oxford 28-10. So before we get into what happened in that game and some of the sidebars that have happened since then, let's look at the latest numbers where the Dawgs are concerned. And just look at as far as the 12-team playoff and all of that's going on. So, yes, it's a 12-team playoff format. Georgia, it's kind of a must-win when it comes to Saturday against Tennessee. It's the reason College Game Day is coming back. It's the reason everyone's going to be watching this one. But let's look at these numbers. So according to ESPN's playoff predictor, Georgia still has a 99% chance of making the playoff if it can beat Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech, and doesn't go to the SEC championship game. So you're still sitting good. You really just need to make sure you win out, which UMass should be an easy one. They should theoretically beat Georgia Tech, but weirder things have happened. But that Tennessee game this Saturday is going to be the one that everyone needs to pay attention to. Everyone's going to be tuning in. The chances drop to 90% if the Bulldogs do go to the championship game, but lose it. So keep that in mind. That's interesting. Second regular season loss would have felt much different in a 4-team playoff era. Obviously, you kind of think they probably aren't making it, but it's different times. A loss at home to Tennessee and a 9-3 Georgia would then stand just a 38% chance to make the playoff by winning its final 2 games. So it drops significantly if they lose to Tennessee. The Athletics projection has Georgia as the number 9 seed, traveling to number 8 Penn State in the first round, and it gives Georgia a 69% chance to make the bracket. So odds still in their favor, but it's very clear they need to take care of business when it comes to Saturday's game against Tennessee. Kirby talked a lot today about a lot of things, and we'll get to his sound, and you'll want to listen into a lot of what he had to say because there are some interesting things. First off, someone asked quarterback change with how Carson Beck has been playing. Has a lot of interceptions on the year. Not ideal. I believe it's his 12th. He said no, absolutely not. They have all the confidence in Carson Beck. And Carson Beck still is a good quarterback who's helping this team win at a certain level. I think he is forcing a little too much when looking at through his reads and getting the ball in places, but he's not also making the best decisions. And sometimes that's going to be detrimental. I mean, you kind of saw the offense was all over the place this past weekend, and it seems, the O-line was getting worked. You knew that the defense from Ole Miss was much improved, and they were really good at stopping the run. It just seems like they weren't clicking on all cylinders. Another sidebar that happened, though, was Georgia's Jake Pope, the defensive back, was in a viral video of him after the Ole Miss game celebrating with players of Ole Miss, and it was a really interesting video. Kirby was asked about it, in which he said, quote, "What an idiot, just stupid. He's embarrassed about it. He knew the family. It was a high school teammate's family, but just stupid. But to be honest with you, I don't have time to worry about that stuff," unquote. So Kirby was very upfront about that. Pope was committed to Alabama out of high school and elected to transfer to Georgia following the news of head coach Nick Saban retiring. He did play at Buford High School. But Kirby talks about that. He talks about the state of the team and what they're looking for. So let's tune into what he had to say this week.
Thank goodness it's at our place. We get to come home and play. Night game should be an electric atmosphere. It is every time we play them. They've got a tremendous team. Josh has done an unbelievable job with this team. They're playing at a high level. Just got through watching a bunch of their special teams, and I always say you can tell the character of a team and how good a team is, how hard they play by their special teams, and they play really hard. Defense, offense. I think they're top in the conference, maybe top 3, top 2 in almost every category on offense and defense, which, as you know, that was what we faced last week. They were pretty high in both. But this team is playing defense at an extremely high level, and they have an extremely explosive offense and extremely physical offense. So it's a great test. Nico's playing really well in terms of athleticism, and he's got great arm talent. As you sit down and watch games, you start to realize how good this team is and how well they've played. So they've got a tremendous football team, and we've got a tremendous football team. And it's going to be a great opportunity for these two to go play and square off in what's a pivotal matchup. I mean, it's going to be a great matchup at night at our place and on a national stage. So it's what you come to Georgia to play in, and it seems like we have been in a bunch of these type games, especially this year. So we got to get our team prepared as coaches to play their best game, and they got a great team.
Open it up for questions.
Yeah, Kirby, last week you heard Lane kind of openly address that game as a de facto playoff game. Is that the kind of approach that you consider taking with your team this week?
I don't ever take those approaches. I don't think they're the right way to go about things. I think you're trying to win your conference all the time, and to do that, you got to win your games at home. You got to play well on the road, which we have and haven't. We've done both, but I like making it about who we play and how we play, and less about just outcomes.
Coach, I understand a lot of offensive game plan. It's dictated by the strengths and weaknesses of the defense you're playing. That being said, is there anything you'd like to try and change about the offensive approach of your team these last 3 games starting Saturday night?
Execution would be the biggest thing. I feel like there's been a couple, you call them wasted plays or wasted drives, where we have a stupid penalty, we have a good play with a negative play with a penalty, and you start kind of backed up and screw things up. We haven't had a lot of great field position the last couple games where we have had some unfortunate things with special teams that have happened. But, be more efficient is the most important thing, and that's our biggest struggle, is staying ahead of the chains for third downs and putting together drives where we don't have turnovers. And at the end of the day, you have 2 to 3 turnovers a game, more than the other team. You're not going to win a lot of games if you have that many more turnovers than them.
Gary, you talked after the game about, the injuries you guys are dealing with on the offensive line. In a game week like this with Tennessee, how do you sort of strike that balance and trying to get those guys healthy, but at the same time getting ready for a big opponent on Saturday?
Well, you go with what the medical people give you. You know what I mean? If a guy's healthy enough to practice, he practices. If he's not, then he doesn't. So I go at the recommendation of the tremendous training staff we have. Those kids want to practice. They want to go out there and do it. And sometimes they can. Sometimes they can do certain things and they can't do others. I defer to those guys. And most of the time, especially on your offensive line, it's like the toughest unit you have. So they're going to give you everything they've got. And they want to go out there and practice and play. But in some cases they can, some cases they can't.
Yeah, what have you seen out of Ernest Green this year and how he's developed as a player?
Yeah, Ernest is number one. He plays the hardest position in all of football, which is the left tackle position. I think he's done really well. We've rolled some there, and that Monroe spells him sometimes. Ernest has been dealing with an injury, a really tough injury to manage. He has burners. He's gotten some stingers and burners over there on his shoulder. So even he last week was limited in how much reps he could get in practice. So for him, he's frustrated because right now he's trying to improve and get better, and sometimes you can't do that when you can't practice every single day and you can't go out there and maybe bang and compete like you want to. But for a guy that's played left tackle for really 2 years in major college football, and he's been part of an offensive line that has done a great job protecting the quarterback over the course of 2 years.
Coach, over here, how much similarity do you see between what Ole Miss and Tennessee does on offense in consecutive weeks, specifically at the quarterback position?
Not real similar. 2 different offenses.
Kirby, having a chance to go back and watch the film from Ole Miss, can you give us an assessment of how you feel your offensive line performed?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of plays where we blocked really talented, good players, and we were able to run the ball at times effectively against a really talented defense. There were others where we didn't block them, and our backs made some extremely, really good plays. I mean, I thought Trevor and Nate had some of their best runs of the year, considering what the blocking was or what we got done up front. And then you go to the pass game, and there were times we blocked them and times we didn't. And at the end of the day, when you play from behind and a team can rush the passer like they do, their number one is elite. Prince is an elite rusher. He did not play against LSU. LSU threw the ball, I think, 50 times in that game. You got to wonder, if that guy's out there for 50 passes, does he have an impact on the game? He did not. He had an impact on our game for sure, and he does a really good job. But our guys I'm completely confident in our offensive line. I think our offensive line it's got a good offensive line. We can't put them in a harm's way. And when you play on the road, guys, there's not a guy in this room that's lined up at left tackle with 80,000 people screaming at the top of their lungs, and he knows it's a pass. He gets a distinct 0.5 advantage, and 0.5's a lot. Trust me, I know from coaching this league, it's hard to do. You got to find ways to help people. You got to be able to run the ball to slow it down, and you got to help them out some.
Yeah, Kirby, when it comes to the quarterback position, like, how do you as a coach decide what the guy at that position needs to hear when he's going through adversity? And specifically with Carson, I guess, what does he need to hear in those moments, and how does he compare to some of the quarterbacks you've had in the past?
Well, there's need to hear, and then there's need to reaffirm what's true. What's the actual truth? Because we don't deal in narratives and themes and what people say and social media fodder and what you guys think. We deal in truths, and the truth is what we usually say. Tell them, like, that's a good decision, that's a poor decision, that's a good drop, that's a bad drop. That's a good protection of the ball. If you're going to take a sack, that's a poor protection of the ball. We deal in truths, and we don't go much past that.
Obviously, speaking of truths, passing the ball and turnovers and run game have all been issues with the offense lately. Is there an option that you have at quarterback where there's somebody that could be more of a running threat, or would you consider, or have y'all considered, like, a change either temporarily in game?
Absolutely not. We got the quarterback we've got who's completely competent and capable and understanding of our system and gives us the best chance to win.
Kirby, from a big picture perspective, not just the Ole Miss game, what are the main reasons you think the offense hasn't been as productive this season?
Well, we played really good defenses. So you guys will look at a stat sheet and you'll say, where do they rank? And I'll say, well, against who? Because relative to who we've played some really good teams. But I would be remiss if I would say that we're happy with where we are. We're not happy with where we are. We've played some really, 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 really good defenses, I think, this year, more than most people in terms of their schedule. And when you look at the in SEC games, the ones that matter the most, SEC versus SEC, and you look at all those, it's not as glaring as a difference because there's some really good defenses in our league in terms of what you play against. But we want to be more productive. We want to be able to throw the ball vertical down the field. We want to be able to shoot and play action. Play action set up off of your backs and off of your ability to run the ball. In some games, we have been able to run the ball better than others. In some games, we've been able to drop back pass better than others. But regardless of those two things, you must protect the ball. And we have not done that. And that's the key to the drill. If you don't turn the ball over, guys, you're going to have a chance to win. And then the flip side of that is you got to get turnovers. So where are our strip outs? Where are our rip outs? Where are our takeaways, I would say? Because to win turnover margin, it's a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street.
Coach, last week, Colby Young's accuser recanted her story. What is the situation we have now as far as him being a member of the football team?
The legal process has got to play itself out. Look, we want to support Colby where we can. We continue to provide him with access to our facilities and the support resources we have, whether that's ranking, the training room, mental health, the weight room. But the legal process has to play itself out before we can do anything.
Kirby, there's a video on social media of Jake Pope seemingly celebrating with some Ole Miss fans on the field after the game. Just wanted to see if you had seen that and what your reaction to it was.
Yeah, what an idiot. Just stupid. I didn't see it till today, but he's embarrassed about it. He's upset about it. That's obviously a childhood friend of his. He grew up and played with there at Buford and knows him, hadn't seen him in forever, but just not real smart. But to be honest with you, I don't have time to waste energy on that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like my focus is on Tennessee. I'm not worried about that.
I realize all coaches continue to recruit players who have given verbal commitments, but I'm wondering, now that we've had a couple of years with NIL, how has that affected, has it turned up the intensity of efforts to flip players, and do you have any concerns as you've seen that develop?
I don't understand what you're asking. You're saying worried about our commitments or worried about other people's commitments? What are we talking about?
Just in general, the process of how NIL affects, are you concerned about bidding wars develop?
I've been worried about people committed to us before NIL. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no commitment that is done until it's signed. You know what I mean? And now, even when they're signed, they're not done. So like that I don't know that if you're trying to make it about NIL causes this. I can't say that because it was that way before NIL.
Yeah, Kirby, Tennessee's got one of the top pass rushes in the country. What stands out to you about the way they get after the quarterback and how effective they are?
They're extremely disruptive with 4 people. They don't have to add in. They do pressure, and they pressure well, but they don't have to. They get after people with 4 guys rushing. They 2 platoon, play a lot of guys. They got elite rushers on the edge, which we all know about. But, nobody talks about how hard they play internally. I think Coach Garner's done a tremendous job with the physicality they play with across the board on the defensive line is tremendous, and they play really hard.
Kirby, you often talk about the rigors of the SEC schedule, and without divisions this year, there's kind of a logjam of a lot of mathematical possibilities of who can still get to the SEC title game, and you're wrapping up your SEC schedule. Is it more competitive than years past? Is there more parity? If so, why? Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think the statistics say there's more parity. I mean, just looking at the sheer differentials in games, looking at the matchups, looking at the number of teams that are still in it. Some of that's because of the non-divisions. It brings everybody into it. But there's a lot of good football teams, and it's a war of attrition. It's like I've talked about all year. It's an emotional roller coaster that you don't want to be a part of. You want to navigate this thing with a long-term mindset in your approach to it. And there's a lot of good football teams out there, and there's a lot of good games left to be played. There's a lot of good teams left to play games.
Yeah, you talk about Carson getting in the right place, things like that. How do you feel, I guess, he and the O-line are doing in terms of communicating, protections, checks, things like that? How has that continued to evolve over the course of the season with obviously offensive line shuffling, Jared playing center, things like that?
Protection checks, he's elite at. He does a great job. He's really smart. He does an awesome job. That communication is, there's no communication issue there. It's if anything, it's blocking them. You know what I mean? Like you got to go physically block them and get them blocked. It's not a communication. It's one-on-one. I mean, same way our guys beat people at times, one-on-one pass rush. Sometimes you get beat, and it's usually not a communication error for us.
Time for one more question. Yeah, where or what areas have you guys as a team gotten better since the bye week?
Well, I would say the tackling on defense was a big deal for us, and at times we've shown the ability to prove. I don't know which bye week you're referencing. I guess you're talking about the last one.
Since after the Texas game.
Yeah, after the Texas game. So we worked really hard on some protection things that we wanted to do differently on offense. We've been able to utilize some of those. Some of those were in the Florida game, not necessarily in the Ole Miss game where we were in a little bit more pass-happy situation. But I thought that Nate Frazier's improved a lot during that time. He's gotten better. I think special teams-wise, we've added a few wrinkles. We've changed a couple things schematically, defensively that we're doing different. So the improvement is not seen sometimes in 2 games. It's seen over a course of time, and it's a continuum, right? It's not like we're saying, okay, it's this jump. It's like every practice we have since the bye week, we've had, I don't know, not 14, but 14 days. We've had a lot of practices where the improvement for us is these younger players that have gotten more reps and continue to get better. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't get to play because the games we've been in have been a lot tighter. Thanks.
Hey, John, have you had a chance to look at Nico? Kirby was talking about his arm strength and his ability to make plays with his legs. I guess, have you had a chance to look at film, and if so, what stands out?
Right. I've been seeing him all throughout the year. He's a well-talented quarterback. Being able to throw the ball and being able to use his legs. That's what you see in a modern quarterback at this point in time, of a dual quarterback. So, he's very talented.
Jalen, we saw Smile make his return on Saturday. What did you see from him as he worked back from injury, and how big is it for you guys at inside linebacker getting Smile back?
Right. Smile's a resilient, person and player. It was just a great opportunity to see him go out there. I actually shared his first snap with him. And, it was just a full circle moment. Me coming in as a freshman, him being the guy who was starting, and then him finally getting back, under his feet, getting the opportunity to play. It was just a great thing to see him back out there.
Jalen, you guys are very process oriented over being concerned about results week in and week out. When it does come after a loss, how do you describe what that process is? The very next week. How much does it differ at all from a win? How much more attention to detail, things like that?
Right. We move on and just get ready for our next game. Like you said, we're very process oriented, and that's part of the process. Just just getting over that hump and moving on to the next week and what's important at hand.
Yeah, obviously Tennessee's very different, but they play a lot of pace, or play with a lot of pace. Ole Miss has, Mississippi State has, several offenses in this conference like to run a lot of plays. Do you ever get comfortable? Do you ever get used to playing against a defense that plays a lot of pace?
Right. Being, like you said, there's a lot of teams that have pace, and the way we practice the pace, we do get comfortable in that situation, making sure we practice enough and prepare enough that when we get to the game, it's just very normal for us to get ready and get lined up to play.
Yeah, Ole Miss last week came out and said they were treating that game like a playoff game. Do you think that desperation that they played with helped them at all, and do you think that could help you guys going into this game against Tennessee this week?
Right. For our mindset for Tennessee is just playing Tennessee. We're not moving further in the future. We're just going out there and playing football like we normally should do. That's important for us, and that's our goal for this week.
Jalen, it's been 5 weeks, but does it feel like 5 months since you played at home? And what do you need out of the crowd that you've experienced on the road to get you through this?
Right, just great crowd energy. Bring that energy in the stadium for us. Just bring the energy out. For a big game. We have college game day there as well. Just a lot of things going on, and of course our stadium's always there to bring the electrifying energy and juice we need. So,
Jalen, Tennessee has one of the top rushing offenses this season. Just in general, when you're facing a team that can run the ball like that, what are the keys? What do you guys defensively have to do to try to slow them down?
Right, just being able to stop the run. Their explosive offense on defense, on offense as a passing offense and rushing offense. Just things like that, honing in to our craft and and executing what we need to do. So it's eliminating the rush plan. That's what we'll have to do, and then of course they'll go to their passing game as well. So doing that and vice versa, just eliminating those explosives.
John, a couple of weeks ago, you guys had a rival in Florida, then you had Ole Miss, now you have a rival, Tennessee. I know you're a North Carolina guy, so you didn't necessarily grow up with these rivalries, but do you think rivalry games mean more to players, or not necessarily with these 12-team playoff era?
Right. I'm not familiar from being North Carolina, but I mean, there is a rivalry, I guess you say, for this game. But it's for us, to me, it's just another SC football game. We play great SC schools throughout the year, and there's just another opportunity for us to go out there and play football.
Jalen, Coach Smart has talked about several of these offensive linemen battling through injury, continuing to work to get out there. Just what have you seen from that group and what they've gone through and what they've tried to do to help you guys?
Right. It's a hard-working group we have in our O-line room. They're doing the best that they can to be able to be healthy and support, for our offense, and they're doing their best, the ability to perform each Saturday. And, I appreciate them greatly for what they do week in and week out.
Jalen, did you see that viral video of Jake celebrating after the game?
I did.
As a leader and someone who was playing in that game, what was your reaction and what would you say to him?
Right, just a mistake, but I mean, that's just for Coach Smart's hands. It's nothing I can really comment in and speak about on.
Any more for Jalen? It seemed like that Ole Miss had a lot of receivers running free as a defense collectively. What were some of the breakdowns you think that led to that?
Right, just a lot of things that the Ole Miss offense had prepared, and what we needed to have answers to. Sometimes we just didn't have that answer for it. But I feel that communication and things on that are part of our end, comes of that as well. But I mean, just having better communication and being able to execute well at a high level to prevent those things happening.
Okay, thank you, Jalen.
Or obviously going into that football game, you guys knew they were going to stunt a good bit. How did you guys feel as if you counteracted that or responded to those stunts, particularly against zone?
Yeah, I mean, really with zone, you're on a track. You kind of want to just stay on a track and not let anything knock you off. Yeah, I mean, just really trying to emphasize staying on track. Versus movement and zone plays is like pretty much how we try to attack it.
Dylan, how would you assess just blocking for the run game? And obviously Georgia's been known for run game this past week that was non-existent almost. What can be done to reestablish it?
We just need to get better. I mean, it's plain and simple as that. We need to just attack this week of practice and clean up some footwork and some things that just trouble most offensive lines. And just really just attack this week in practice and just get better with the fundamentals.
Dylan, how much do you feel like this matchup against a really good Tennessee defensive front is a chance for you guys to prove yourselves and to bounce back from last week?
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, and in this league, you got to move forward. You got to bury things, and that's what we've done. We're moving forward, and we're looking forward to attacking this week and just getting better at this week practice.
Over here. Whenever you're facing a defensive line as talented as Ole Miss was, is an offensive line, is there anything that can be done, schematically to maybe help you guys a little bit more, or is it just as simple as just blocking the man, who's there in front of you?
I would just say trust and fundamentals. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Is how good are your fundamentals? Kind of just go back to the basics. Just try to focus on that.
Yeah, Dylan, I would guess the film session yesterday wasn't necessarily pretty, but when you're watching that, just what were the biggest things you noticed on film, and how much of what you saw can be corrected on from one week to the next?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm saying, it's a fundamentals thing. I think offensive line play is a lot of habitual. It's fundamentals are key in offensive line play, and when you lack fundamentals and when you lack those habits that are gonna keep you on the right course during the game, it's not what you want. You got to go back to work. You got to get better. You got to go back to fundamentals and the basics of things and just get better.
Smile was back on the field Saturday for the first time since his injury. Just from afar, what have you seen from him as he's pushed to make his return?
Yeah, he's so positive about just, Smiles had a couple of injuries, and it's easy to let that, get you down and discourage you. And I just think he's been real positive every time I see him. He's got a smile on his face. And so he's just attacked everything in rehab and everything that he's got to do to get back out there and doing what he does.
This game is being marketed and promoted this week as playoff elimination. Does it feel like that to you guys? Is there an air of desperation over Saturday's competition?
I would just say it's a game for us that we have to execute in and perform well. I mean, I wouldn't say desperation. I would just say that, it's a game we want to win. I mean, I think every game we want to win. Every game, every year we're striving to go to the playoffs. We're trying to get in those big, championship games, and to do that, you got to win. So.
Dylan, you guys always pride yourself on being very process-oriented, more so than the results. When it does come after, a loss, how much urgency is there to get those things corrected, to get that process back up to speed to where you guys want it compared to when you do win?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, just you guys are process-oriented. You're always not fixated on the results, but
right.
The situation you are, with a goal, still intact.
Mm-hmm.
You guys.
Stick with us throughout the week. We'll have all the latest sports headlines for you here on Sports Tonight concerning everything that's going on, not only with the Falcons as they travel to Denver, but with the Dawgs as well. That will do it for your Monday Sports Tonight. Have a great night.